Cy woke to the Miles Davis rendition of So What. For a moment he wondered if the memory of the night before wasn't a dream. It felt so good to be awake, listening to just the song he wanted to hear. "Are you feeling better, Cy?" Tilly asked. "Am I?" "I thought I turned you off, Tilly, with a hardwire switch. I was quite concerned that you had stopped all Centillion access to your life last night and forgot to turn it back on. You might have missed your wake-up call. However, Centillion added a system-level fail-safe to prevent such an occurrence. We thought most users such as yourself would want an override so that Centillion could regain access to your life." "Of course," I said, "so it's impossible to turn Tilly off and keep her off." Everything Jenny said last night was true. He felt a chill tingle on his back. "There's a gap of about 12 hours which I couldn't acquire data about you. To prevent degradation in my ability to help you, I recommend that you fill me in." "Oh, you didn't miss much. I came home and fell asleep, too tired." "You sound a bit down. Is it because of the date last night? It seems that Ellen wasn't the right match for you after all." Yeah, maybe not. Don't worry, I know just the thing that will put you in a good mood." Though he still hadn't figured out a plan for plugging the tiny thumb drive into a Centillion machine, Cy was glad to have come to the end of another long day of guarding himself against Tilly. Getting to know Jenny was the oddest thing he'd ever done, Cy realized. He couldn't count on Tilly to make sure ahead of time that they would have topics to talk about. He couldn't rely on Tilly's always appro's suggestions when he was at a loss for words. He couldn't even count on being able to look up Jenny's Cherall profile. He was on his own, and it was exhilarating. "How did you figure out everything Tilly was doing to us?" "I grew up in China," Jenny said, wiping a strand of hair behind her ear. Cy found the gesture inexplicably endearing. "Back then, the government watched everything you did on the network and made no secret of it. You had to learn how to keep the insanity at bay, to read between the lines, to speak without being overheard. I guess we're lucky over here." "No," and she smiled at his surprise. He was just learning that she preferred to be contrarian, to disagree with him. He liked that about her. "You grew up believing you were free, which made it even harder for you to see when you weren't. You were like frogs in the pot, being slowly boiled. Are there many like you?" "No, it's hard to live off the grid. I've lost touch with my old friends. I have a hard time getting to know people because so much of their lives are lived inside Centillion and Cherall. I can peek in on them once in a while through a dummy profile, but I can never be a part of their lives. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing." "You are," Cy said, and though there was no Tilly to prompt him, he took Jenny's hands in his. She didn't pull away. Finally, the day had come. Cy sat down in his cubicle, stood up, and sat down again. He found himself full of nervous energy as he contemplated the best way to deliver the payload, as it were. Maybe he could pretend to be tech support there to perform an emergency scan of his system. Maybe he could deliver lunch and plug the drive in slyly. Maybe he could pull the fire alarm and hope that Rushcore would leave his laptop behind. Not a single one of those ideas passed the laugh test. "Hey," the associate who had been with the Rushcore in the conference all day was suddenly standing next to Cy's cubicle. "Rushcore needs to charge his phone, and you got a Centillion charging cable over here?" Cy stared at him, dumbfounded by his luck. The associate held up a phone and waved it at him. "Of course," Cy said. "I'll bring one right to you." "Thanks," the associate went back to the conference room. Cy couldn't believe it. That was it. He plugged the drive into a charging cable and added an extension on the other end. The whole thing looked only a little odd, like a thin python who had been swallowed by a rat, but suddenly he felt a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, and he almost swore out loud. He had forgotten to turn off the webcam above his computer, Tilly's eyes, before preparing the cable. If Tilly raised questions about the weird cable he was carrying, he would have no explanation, and then all the efforts of misdirection and hiding would be for naught. But there was nothing he could do about it now. But proceed as planned. As he left his cubicle, his heart was almost in his throat. He stepped into the hallway and strode down into the conference room. Still nothing from his earpiece. He opened the door. Rushcore was too busy with his computer even to look up. He grabbed the cable from Cy, plugged one into his computer and the other end into his phone, and Tilly remained silent. Cy woke to what else? We are the champions. The previous night of drinking and laughing with Jenny and her friends had been a blur, but he did remember coming home and telling Tilly right before he slept, "We did it! We won!" If Tilly only knew what we were celebrating. The music faded, stopped. Cy stretched lazily, turned to his side, and stared into the eyes of 4 burly, very serious men. "Tilly, call the police!" "I'm afraid I can't do that, Cy." "Why the hell not? These men are here to help you. Trust me, Cy. I know. You know I know just what you need." When the strange man had appeared in his apartment, Sai had imagined torture chambers, mental hospitals, faceless guards parading outside the dark cells. He had not imagined that he would be sitting across the table from Christian Rin, founder and executive chairman of Centillion, having white tea. "You got pretty close," Rin said. The man was barely in his 40s and looked fit and efficient, kind of like how I picture a male version of Tilly, Sai thought. He smiled. "Closer than almost anyone." "What was the mistake that gave us away?" Jenny asked. She was sitting next to Sai's left, and Sai reached out for her hand. They intertwined their fingers, giving each other strength. "It was his phone, on the first night he visited you." "Impossible. I shielded it. It couldn't have recorded anything." "But you left it on the desk, where it could still make use of its accelerometer. It detected and recorded the vibrations from your typing. There's a very distinctive way we strike the keys on a keyboard, and it's possible to reconstruct what someone was typing based on the vibration patterns alone. It's an old technology we developed for catching terrorists and drug dealers." "You're a very creepy man, Mr. Rin," Sai said, "and despicable too." Rin didn't seem bothered by this. "I think you might feel differently by the end of our conversation. Centillion was not the first company to stalk you." Sai didn't understand what Rin was getting at, but he sensed that he would not like what he was about to find out. He wanted to tell Rin to shut up, but he held his tongue. "Curious, aren't you? You can't resist the pull of information. If it's possible, you want to learn something new. We're hardwired that way. That's the drive behind Centillion, too." "Don't believe anything he says," Jenny said. Sai's heart beat faster. He turned to Jenny. "Is this true? You planned from the start to use me? You got to know me just so you'd have a chance to deliver a virus?" Jenny turned her face away. "They know there's no way to hack into our systems from the outside, so they had to sneak a Trojan in. You were you, Sai. She and her friends guided you, led you by the nose, made you do things, just like they accuse us of doing." Sai let go of Jenny's hand and turned back to Rin. "Maybe they did use me, but they're right. You've turned the world into a panopticon, and all the people in it into obedient puppets that you nudge this way and that just so you'd make more money." "It'd be easy to be cynical like that," Rin said, "but I'm proud of what we've done. If the cultural imperialism is what it takes to make the world a better place, then we'll be happy to arrange the world's information to ennoble the human race. Why can't you just be in the business of neutrally offering up information? Why not going to be a simple search engine? Why all the surveillance and filtering? Why all the manipulation?" Sai said. "Centillion is in the business of organizing information, and that requires choices, direction, inherent subjectivity. What is important to you, what is true to you, is not as important or true to others. It depends on judgment and ranking. To search for what matters to you, we must know all about you, and that, in turn, is indistinguishable from filtering, from manipulation." "You make it sound so inevitable." It is inevitable. You think destroying Centillion will free you, whatever free means, but let me ask you, can you tell me the requirements for starting a new business in the state of New York? Sai opened his mouth and realized that his instinct was to ask Tilly. He closed his mouth again. "What's your mother's phone number?" Sai resisted the urge to reach for his phone. "How about you tell me what happened in the world yesterday? What book did you buy and enjoy 3 years ago? When did you start dating your last girlfriend?" Sai said nothing. "You see, without Tilly, you can't do your job, and you can't remember your life. You can't even call your mother. We are now a race of cyborgs. We long ago began to spread our minds into the electronic realm, and it is no longer possible to squeeze all of ourselves back into our brains. The electronic copies of yourself that you had wanted to destroy are in a literal sense actually you. Since it's impossible to live without these electronics extensions of ourselves, if you destroy Centillion, a replacement will just rise to take its place. It's too late. The genie has long left the bottle. Churchill said that we shape our buildings, and afterwards our buildings shape us. We made machines to help us think, and now the machines think for us." "So what do you want with us?" Jenny asked. "We won't stop fighting you." "I want you to come and work for Centillion." Sai and Jenny looked at each other. "What?" "We want people who can see through Tilly's suggestions, detect her imperfections. For that, we've been able to do with AI and data mining. The perfect algorithm remains elusive. Because you can see her flaws, you'll be the best at figuring out what Tilly's still missing and where she's gone too far. It's the perfect match. You'll make her better, more compelling, so that Tilly will do a better job. What if we refuse to tell you, but tell the world what you've done? No one would believe you. We will make it so that everything you say, whatever you write, no one will ever find. On the net, if it can't be found by Centillion, it doesn't exist." Sai knew that he was right. "You thought Centillion was just an algorithm, a machine, but now you know it's built by people. People like me, people like you. You've told me what I've done wrong. Wouldn't you rather be part of us so that you can try to make things better? In the face of the inevitable, the only choice is to adapt." Sai closed the door of the apartment behind him. The camera overlooked him. Will Jenny be coming over for dinner tomorrow? Tilly asked. Maybe. You really need her to get her to start sharing. It will make planning much easier. I wouldn't count on it, Tilly. You're tired. How about I order you some hot organic cider for delivery and then you go to bed? That does sound perfect. No, I said. I think I just prefer to read for a while in bed. Of course. Would you like me to suggest a book? I'd rather you take the rest of the night off, actually. But first, set up the wake-up song to Sinatra's My Way. An unusual choice given your taste. Is this a one-time experiment, or would you like me to incorporate it into your music recommendations in the future? Just this once, for now. Good night, Tilly. Please turn yourself off. The camera whirred, followed side to bed, and shut off. But a red light continued to blink, slowly, in the darkness.
So I face the final curtain